Hey everyone, welcome back to Geet Builds. I am Geet, and today we're going to be building this huge jungle temple. Like usual, I'll show a quick time lapse of making the terrain itself in World Painter, and then I'll be doing the rest of the building in-game with the help of World Edit. The map is for 1.16.5, and I'll have the download link down in the description on Planet Minecraft. So in World Painter, I recently made a bunch of new mountain brushes, and used a few of those on this map. I wanted the mountains to have good size but not be too sheer, so I bumped the brush size up to 440 and made a ring of mountains around the island. Towards the front of the map where you would enter, I added some flat areas to give the impression you're going through a sort of secret cliff passage to find the temple. And in-game, I create two stone arches connecting the sides together. I added a shallow lake in the middle, and I dig out a river running from the lake to the ocean, and then go around the map with a small brush creating flat-topped stone pillars all over the island. Once that was done, I added the trees, plants, and color to the mountain rock. To make the stone arches, I used the World Edit Convex Selection command. Select a bunch of points in a curved line, and then set the arches to be red wool so I can replace it later with a mix of different brownish blocks. I used the overlay command to add 2 layers of grass on top of the arches, and then use willow tree schematics to add trees to the top of the arches. I used the convex command again and created the vines that droop down from the arches as well, and then with the arches done, I went around the map adding more vines running down the sides of the stone pillars and swinging from one pillar to another. With the terrain work done, I got to work making the temple. Going into the build, I knew the temple was going to be big, so I used a few reference images while building to get the shape and scale right. I pretty much knew ahead of time how the temple would look, so making the temple felt a lot more like putting together a puzzle, creating the different sections one bit at a time and piecing them together. I started with the bridge first to make sure I got the length and size of that right, and it would give me an easy place to start building off of when I got to building the temple itself. I struggled a lot trying to figure out what color scheme I'd be using. Originally, I wanted the temple to have a reddish-orange look, so I started with red sandstone, but quickly realized the whole thing would look like a traffic cone if it was bright orange. So I switched to blackstone and prismarine, but thought that looked kinda goofy too. So I went with the generic mossy cobblestone and mossy stone brick dominated color scheme, which gives the temple an overgrown appearance that I was hoping to get with vines anyways, so it seemed like a good match. With the bridge done, I made the base of the temple that the front entryway would be on, with the sides sloping down towards the water with a stair-step effect. I used polished basalt to give it a little design, and then made the first arched entrance. I copied the first level, made a few adjustments on the arch itself, and then pasted it on top to get a stacked entryway. Above the bottom 2 layers, I made a third entry that's a bit more recessed into the temple itself, and made a towering arch that goes up about half of the temple's total height. After that, I move up to the front of the temple some more, adding a few more arches and a cool square design surrounding them. The goal was to give the temple as much depth as possible, with different balconies, alcoves, and arches added all over the place. To top off the front section, I made a stair slope pattern to match the bottom of the temple, and then move over to the side to start on another wall. Making the front of the temple wasn't too tricky, since I didn't have to worry about anything connecting yet, so things moved pretty quickly in this section. I used the square alcoves over here as well, and just try to get a uniform style going around the temple to tie everything together in the end. This wall starts creeping above what's already been built, so I started fitting the wall into the top of the entryway and copy-paste some things over to the other side. This is basically the majority of the front section of the temple done, so I started working on wrapping this section around to the side wall. I made just a little bit of the edge of this wall, so I knew where I would eventually have to connect to, and then work my way down from the top of the temple which had already been made. This is where things felt a bit more complicated, since I had to worry about the scale and structure of the side wall eventually meeting the front wall. On the right section of the wall, I made a few archways that would open up into a balcony, then worked my way down the wall, adding more alcoves and a start of what would eventually be another layer spreading out towards the base of the temple. This section has a huge arch that extends to the bottom of its layer and opens up into an enclosed courtyard. I used a few different wall blocks to get a curved pattern on the outside of the courtyard, and added polished basalt pattern on the floor as well. I copied the huge arch from the front, modify it so it can be placed over here, and then paste it onto the courtyard. Working down from the courtyard, I add large sections ahead of time to help me get the layering and size right, then texture it with some designs I had already used on the front wall already, adding a few indents into the temple where I would then make snaking symbols designs out of blackstone. The stair-step base of the temple gets copied again, and I make some adjustments so that it will fit around here as well. The bottom section is a series of deep arches that open up into a hallway on the inside. With the main structure made, I copy the alcoves and paste them down next to the tallest arch. Now that I had basically created the entire front quarter of the temple, I copy what I had done so far, mirror it, and then paste it to the other side. I do basically the same thing by mirroring the majority of the front half of the temple and pasting it around the back. Since the front and back aren't exactly the same, not everything fit quite right. So I had to make quite a few adjustments to where I was pasting the back of the temple, and had to make a lot more tiny adjustments on different sections to get everything pieced together. When I was happy with how everything fit, I finished up an entryway leading to the top balcony, and then closed off the ceiling of the temple with a layered roof design. This basically completed the temple, So I went around and added some vanilla Minecraft vines, but I didn't really like how they looked when there were so many around. Instead, I used jungle leaves to make larger vines that snake in and out of the windows of the temple, up the walls and through the archways. Adding the vines really brought everything together and gave the temple an overgrown, abandoned look. I really liked how the temple looked, but I thought it looked slightly out of place sitting in the open lake with nothing around it. So I took the finished map back into World Painter, added a ton of tiny islands covered in willow trees throughout the lake, and then merged the two maps together. I always have a ton of issues with World Painter when I merge maps like this, so I had to do a lot of really boring, tiny tweaks in-game to get everything looking right, but that's pretty tedious and boring, so I won't include any of that in the time lapse. But that's basically everything done. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, feel free to like and subscribe to see more stuff like this. I've been pretty busy, so I haven't been able to finish my Cliffside City quite yet, but I'll be working more on that and should hopefully have an update video posted soon for that as well. So I hope you liked the build. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'd love to hear what you think if you download the map and explore around it yourself. And I'll see you next time. Peace.